if we wear the Web3 hat, not specifically like, try to put everything on chain, but actually wear the Web3 hat of the self-sovereignty, of the ability to kind of control your data, which is, one of parts of our mission on Near, then you want to have all this data on the user side. You want to be able to access it. It's a flip side of this idea that users should own their data and users should own their AI. So as language models becoming more powerful, it's really important that, the models you're using are actually on your side. They're not being kind of controlled, manipulated, or optimized for, best financial outcome for another company.
If you are an Empire listener, hopefully you've played around on chain. And if you have done that, you know that transferring assets across different chains is a pain, to put it nicely. That is why we are incredibly excited to have the Wormhole Foundation as a partner of the Empire podcast, stewards of the Wormhole protocol, supporting over 30 different blockchains and 6 different runtimes. Stay tuned later in the show. We have a cool thing that you can claim, which is a Wormhole NFT just for Empire listeners. This episode is brought to you by PayPal. Here at Empire, you know that Santi and I are really into real-world use cases and always on the lookout for the next killer blockchain app. We're excited to share that PayPal has arrived in crypto to unveil a way to seamlessly connect fiat to digital currencies. Later in the show, you will find out how you can use PYUSD to check out at millions of online stores. What's up, everyone? Before we jump into the episode, little plug for Digital Asset Summit coming up in London, March 18th to 20th. Tickets are pacing so far ahead of schedule that we had to decrease the discount code. So instead of Empire 20, it is now Empire 10. Head over to the website, Digital Asset Summit, London, March 18th to 20th. Use code Empire 10 and get 10% off your ticket. See you in London. All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Empire. Back after a 2-year Empire hiatus, we have Illia from Near, and also lucky to be joined by Spencer, known as Xerox Pibbles on Twitter, who's making his Empire debut. So Spencer, Illia, welcome to the show, guys.
Yeah, thanks for inviting back.
Yeah. Illia, I think it'd be a helpful place. So it's funny. So prepping for this episode, I was like, all right, definitely want to talk about DA stuff and then consumer stuff. And then obviously your background's in AI. So I wanted to talk about AI and your ideas around bridging. But before we jump into all of that, you recently returned to Near Protocol to kind of, I think, sail the ship as CEO is my understanding. What is the why behind that decision?
Yeah, so just for context, I mean, I've been most recent been leading the product engineering team at Pagoda, which is, kind of one of the engineering groups in the Near ecosystem, focused on protocol as well as a lot of the kind of features and innovations in the overall stack. And the kind of realization that we had was, as we were building a lot of the kind of this innovation we'll talk about, we really needed to coordinate better with kind of marketing and partnerships teams in the Near Foundation. And so me kind of coming as a CEO of Near Foundation allows us to have this vision cohesively driven by, and at the same time coordinating the ecosystem kind of more effectively. So yeah, I'm excited to be here. We kind of made some changes organizationally recently, but now we have full on team ready to go, coordinating across lots of different decentralized nodes in the ecosystem. And yeah, I mean, I'm excited to share kind of what people are working on, as well as how I see a lot of the space evolving this year and beyond.
Nice. For folks who haven't followed Near in the past, maybe 18 to 24 months, and maybe just think of it as another alt L1, what is the maybe best framework to think about Near today?
So indeed, Near started as L1, and kind of the core idea was how do we make it really simple for people to use and build in the blockchain space. And so the way it so evolved is in this idea that, I mean, we have this multi-chain space, right? We'll have 10,000 rollups tomorrow. We have a bunch of layer ones, which are, have their own applications and kind of benefits. And at the same time, this space is it was already hard to use. It's becoming more increasingly harder to use. And so our broader vision that we had from the beginning, which is we want this to be easy to use, cheap and accessible to everyone, kind of just spans in a broader sense. So we call it chain abstraction. It's kind of a broader movement that we see across the space. There's people from Cosmos ecosystem really pushing for it as well. There's a huge need in rollup space around it. But this idea that like Near is a toolkit and a stack of tools, everything from the layer one protocol to kind of identity layer to data layer to decentralized front ends to integrations with this consumer apps we have that really deliver experience where users can use applications without thinking about blockchain, be that Near, be that kind of Bitcoin, Ethereum, EVMs, Solana, Cosmos app chains. You can just use apps and kind of really not care. And so that's what really like delivering that vision, chain abstraction vision. And Near is kind of this chain abstraction stack that has a lot of these tools.
Why can Near accomplish chain abstraction when other folks can't? Because I think that's what everybody says, right? Everybody says, yeah, if you're using Solana, you're using Avalanche, we don't want you to know that you're using it, and one day the users won't actually know. Why is Near uniquely positioned to accomplish this and others aren't?
Well, I mean, there's two things. One is neither Solana or Avalanche actually saying that, right? Solana is saying they want to be the fastest chain, and Avalanche is, offering kind of their like whatever subnets for people to launch stuff. And we have from the beginning kind of positioned ourselves as like, hey, we want to be this easy to use, but like moving blockchain into the background. And so because of this, we've done a lot around account abstraction from the start. Like Near launch was account abstraction. You can have, very easy Web2 style onboarding. You can have multiple keys accessing your account. You can have recovery kind of keys like accessible by some like that. You can have third parties, for example, with delay recovering your account in case you lost your primary key. You can have like different devices. You can have applications having specific limited access key to use. So we built a whole framework around pretty much how account is used in such a way that like applications and wallets and kind of things on top can actually abstract it out. Like one of the really cool apps called KeyPalm is allowing to, I can send you a link, you can click it, you can start using apps right away. You don't need to deposit funds, you don't need to do this. It's all actually preloaded and it's a trial account. And so when you want to kind of claim it fully, you pay back me whatever I sent you initially, and then you get full access to this account, right? So this is just like an example of what you can build on top and delivers this experience. And so that was the foundation, but now kind of Near itself is also the way it's structured, and we can go into kind of sharding. The idea was that every single smart contract on Near, every single account on Near is actually its own quote unquote chain. And what we've been doing is abstracting this out. We've been really kind of providing this interface over in such a way that any user doesn't need to think about it, but all the interactions are hidden. And what we do now with other kind of offerings is just like expanding that, such that rollups are also just part of the system. They use the same data availabilities, they use the same kind of potentially message routing, and you can kind of continue abstracting this interface, even achieving similar level of security and finality as Near offers. So I would say like why Near is really well positioned here is because we kind of taken that mindset from the start and we designed a lot of the underlying kind of layer one as well as tooling to really focus on kind of removing this complexity from a user. And now we're just opening it up and connecting to other chains and other ecosystems throughout the stack. And yeah, again, we can talk about the specifics, partnerships, and offerings across the stack. But yeah, that's been conceptually the mindset we always had. And we've, partnered and talked and always kind of had a very good relationship with all the blockchains. We've had the whiteboard series where we interviewed a lot of other blockchains. So we got to have a very like positioning that is more not like this confrontational, everybody come to my chain and abandon everything. But more like, hey, let's all work together. Let's grow this ecosystem. Let's bring users. Let's make it easy for them. And really kind of make it happen.
That whiteboard series was good, by the way. I just watched the one on Celestia, which was interesting for me because, we'll talk about DA later on in the show. But, you guys are ultimately competing, I think, with Celestia in one form or another. So it's interesting to kind of have them on and talk about that. But anyways, we'll talk about DA in a second. Let's I think let's go sharding and then account aggregation, because I think sharding, when I think about Near, it's like, I think it was your co-founder came from a background of like a database background, basically. I mean, you were at Google before Near. Why is so sharding? Maybe let's say 2 or 3 years ago was all the rage. I feel like everyone was talking about it. Now nobody's talking about it. A lot of other L1s have gone in a different direction. You guys have stayed the course. Two-part question here. What is sharding? Can you give us a reminder? And then like, why is it so necessary here? And what is, maybe three-part question, and what is like the next evolution of sharding for Near?
Yeah, so this is kind of talking about the lowest level of our stack, right? The layer one itself. And kind of the idea of sharding is pretty simple, right? It's you cannot kind of store, process all the transactions and store all the data of all the smart contracts in one machine when we get to 1 billion users, right? And we all want to get to 1 billion users, right? This is just like physically impossible. And so, all the Web2 companies do sharding. Like this is just a normal way you kind of split your data across multiple computers. You process data in parallel. All Web2 companies have replication. They actually, Google, Facebook, all of them run consensuses internally on their database. It is a permissioned consensus, but still. And so, so that's kind of the system at the core. Now, in blockchain space, things become more complicated. There's obviously permissionlessness that you need to account for. Potential attack vectors. And so Near design kind of from the start has this very kind of simple idea, but obviously requires complexity to implement. But let's imagine that every single account, right? My account, your account, smart contract for for AMM or for lending protocol, etc., is a separate chain. But this is obviously inefficient, right? This is you don't want to run like for my account that only needs to store just the balance, the whole chain with all its own validators. So let's just group them effectively into a set of common validators in such a way that I as a user don't need to care about this, right? I just know I have an account, it's stored across kind of somewhere on across a shared set of validators, and then I can just transact with it. So like all of the complexity of this, multi-chain world that happens inside Near is hidden. And so we call it kind of, there's logical shards, which is accounts, and there's a physical shards, which is actual splitting of the data and transaction processing that happens on the chain. And just to kind of compare this, right, we kind of have now a progression, right? You have things like Cosmos, where each application is a separate chain, right? You need to launch a whole separate chain if you want to launch your application, like DYDX or whatever. It gives you benefits. You can customize on the consensus level. You can customize some other parts like mempool, but obviously you need to bootstrap. It's a very expensive procedure. You have approach of Ethereum, which they take in with rollups, where they kind of say, well, instead of sharding the whole space, everybody creates its own kind of subspace, and then we interconnect them. But they all have similar security within some like latency parameters. And the complexity is there. Now you have, instead of having one account that can use all the apps, you have now account on every of the rollups, and now you need to deal with that somehow. And then you have Near approach, which is like, okay, well, all of this complexity is hidden. You have one account, and you can transact with all other chains, but you don't need to think about it. And so obviously there's trade-offs in all of these options, but again, we focused on kind of simplifying the way you interact with this. Now, we had in 2019 published the paper on this. It included actually data availability as part of this, because in the way this has sequencing, data availability, execution, settlement, like all the same steps that right now rollups, for example, have in modularity stack, and we just like package it together kind of effectively and abstract it out. And so we've set out a kind of a four-phase plan. We had kind of 3 phases done up in 22. And so we have a final phase that is launching now in the kind of incentivized testnet, and will be launching later kind of in Q2 on mainnet, which is kind of finalizing the like sharding design we outlined. And the core idea there is we implementing what's called stateless validation. So this is the idea that now every validator, instead of tracking a shard, can receive a block that contains all of the information required to validate that block. And so this is like, Ethereum has been doing, Ethereum researchers have been doing research on this. So we have this implemented, and it allows to have a lot more validators validating shards. It allows to have kind of validators themselves need a lot less kind of hardware requirements, because it now don't need to store the state of the blockchain, which is one of the biggest issue in general in the blockchain space. And on the other side, because it's a sharded design compared to kind of monolithic chains like right now Ethereum or Solana, for example, we can actually keep all of the state itself in memory on each shard, because each shard is limited to a very specific size of the of like, and we can just add more shards if the state grows. And so because of this, we actually get a really huge improvement in performance on each individual shard as well. And so what kind of this final launch we're doing right now is pretty much increasing 5 to 10x performance of each individual shard, allows us to add more shards to the network really easily, and lowers the requirements for a broader set of validators that can validate the network, increasing decentralization and security of the network. So really excited about it. It allows to kind of build for this vision of billions of users, even as we are kind of opening up and working with other ecosystems, because it will allow us to kind of be this entry point for Web3.
Ilya, I have probably a really dumb question here, but so sharding at a high level, sharding is basically dividing the blockchain into smaller blockchains called shards, and that improves scalability. It increases transaction speed. How do you ensure the security of a shard?
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying.
Was this where Nightshade came in?
Yeah, so that's what Nightshade and specifically the stateless validation is kind of the way you ensure security. So now for each shard, right, you produce, we call them chunks, but it's like the block for this specific shard. And so now that block contains all the information you need to validate it, even without knowing anything else about this shard.
Oh, these are the chunk producers.
Yeah, so chunk producers kind of accept transactions, execute them, and then produce a chunk with all of the state that was touched. And so now any other validator in the ecosystem can take that block and validate it and say, yes, it's good, or no, it's not, and we need to slash that, or like ignore it and pretty much rework around it. And so what this allows us to do is to have a ton. You can have like hundreds of thousands of validators now that receive these blocks validated. And so because now you don't have the requirement for them to manage state, you can rotate them constantly, right? You like as a you now don't have requirement, and so you like as a attacker, you don't know which validators to attack in specific shard, right? Because any of the validators potentially can be validating the kind of the chunk in this shard. So you go into the same security as you have right now of any other proof of stake network which doesn't have sharding, because you remove this need of like having subset of validators be consistently tracking a shard, and you can start attacking them and kind of corrupt this shard specifically, and then through that attack the rest of the network. So that's really kind of the core innovation. It is an update to the original Nightshade. We had a different design originally for that. The team has done a ton of research and work on kind of implementing this, and we're going to be releasing kind of update to Nightshade, as well as, again, this is implemented and going to be coming out as incentivized testnet early February.
At the backbone of Near, when I think about the future of Near 2024, 2025, 2026 and beyond, is this account aggregation idea and the single account. Maybe you can just lay up your thesis on how Near will basically what the single account is and what like account aggregation really means, but also like how that ties into this idea of bridging and like multi-chain thesis, and just maybe start high level and then we can go into the details.
Yeah, so maybe the kind of broader, again, chain abstraction thesis is that as a user and even as developer, in many ways, you should not care about which chain what's happening on. So ideally, you should be able to say like, hey, I want execute the best swap or the best between these two tokens, and the tokens may be on different chains. The the gas fees like are different, like all of that. It should, like, as a developer, ideally you should not care about that. You should just say like provide the intent that you want. And as a user, you definitely don't need to see any of this. You just select what you want, you click, right? So how do we implement that, right? That's like a really cool vision, but we're very far from it as of right now. Right now, you need to bridge, create accounts, create wallets, have the gas tokens, understand what's going on, make sure you don't have some token stuck. Like at the times I'm like looking for which wallet I have what on which chain is also kind of insane, right? So few than other concepts. One is bridges are extremely kind of scary in a way, because they're getting hacked all the time. They are a honeypot because they have all the assets that been bridged on them, and like they're kind of external to the chain, so they are the way to attack the chain, right? The bridge doesn't fork with the chain if something happens, and so kind of one of the concepts I want to promote is #unbridge. And so this idea that keep the assets where they have been issued, right? I mean, like for everything except Ethereum right now, you can actually keep the asset where they issued. So let's say, keep the Sol token on Solana, keep the OP token on Optimism, keep the NFT, ordinal on Bitcoin and the Bitcoins themselves. And instead, the user should have an address there, and the applications should have address there in such a way that you can now kind of transact there. And so now that's a very complicated, and users now need to manage all that. And so what we do at Near is we call it account aggregation. Is we're creating a way for a user with Near account to have addresses on all chains. Again, conceptually, think of it as you logging in into Coinbase or Binance. You logging in with one account, but you have addresses on all chains. You can receive assets on these addresses, right, and then transact with them. But now this is a self-custodial account. I mean, you can custody it obviously, but at the core, it's self-custodial with all the kind of abstraction Near offers. It has addresses that don't have explicit private key to them. The private key of these addresses on other chains is controlled by your account, by your Near account, and the Near validators and some other set of kind of validators. And so through that now, you can pretty much, you log in into an app with your kind of account, and you can transact. And if the app is on different chain, it uses the address on that chain and kind of transacts through it. But you as a user don't see that. Like that is invisible to you. And then there's mechanisms how kind of intents get executed, how fees get paid for you. So you only need to kind of pay, for example, Near or stable coins kind of through meta transactions, and you don't need to think about gas tokens and kind of other stuff. And for kind of any multi-chain application, Near will be the place to build, because what it means is your Near smart contract now has addresses on every other chain. You can receive assets, you can transact there. And so if you want to build like a multi-chain swap, you just build a smart contract on Near. It receives, for example, deposit of Bitcoin, and it sends Ethereum on the other chain. If you want to have, swap a Solana NFT for Ethereum NFT, again, Near smart contract receives Solana NFT, sends Ethereum NFT to an address on Ethereum. So Near will be the best place to kind of build multi-chain apps, but also it will be the best place for users because they can use all the blockchains, kind of fully transparent, and like all their intent will be get executed without them like thinking about bridges and all of the other stuff. And assets stay where they are, where they were issued, where the logic lives. Because remember, like,
so that's the key part, right? The asset stays where it is, and you're basically just creating an account there. Therefore, it's not a bridge. It's not. You're not creating a competitor to, say Wormhole, Layer 0, Axelar, etc.
No. And then like some of these things actually will be used because you still need to like pass messages, but you don't want to pass the value. That's main point. Like the messages, information should flow, and like you need bridges for that, but you shouldn't move the value because, and this goes into like in general security, the assets are secured by the chain. If something happens to the chain, that asset is kind of natively there, and like if chain gets rolled back, there's social consensus, whatever, all of that will be like managed there. As soon as you bridged it, you now broke that property. And so now like the asset that you have, like a mirrored bridged asset, doesn't have any of the properties. So if something happens here, rolled back, etc., this asset like completely separately trades, right? And you broke the whole consistency of the system. And we've seen some of this happen, right, in Cosmos ecosystem when there's like problems with chains. I mean, they've been isolated, but still. And so generally, like, yeah, keep the assets where they are. Again, the other example, NFTs, you cannot even bridge them, because NFT have the additional logic that you will not have on the target chain through the bridge, right? So this allows you to keep everything where they are, and then have this kind of aggregated view through one account, and kind of transact through all of this.
I think account aggregation and this whole concept of chain abstraction kind of ties together to make like the golden standard for the end user crypto experience when you're targeting people who aren't necessarily crypto native. And these two concepts kind of tie in perfectly with the blockchain operating system, which is kind of just like this Shopify experience for devs to come set up shop. So I'd like to hear some more about the success and the go-to-market strategy of the blockchain operating system and how it's complementing this broader vision.
Yeah, so I mean, blockchain operating system is this vision. It's just the product, right? So like the chain abstraction is a vision. I mean, there's other people doing intent execution. There's other chains as well, kind of doing a lot of similar parts of the stack. Cosmos have interchain accounts, so it's not a completely just near thing. And so we are kind of bringing a really big group of projects and kind of developers coming together here. And so for us, blockchain operating system was really a stack that we can offer that combines all of these pieces together. And specifically, so account aggregation, to kind of, as part of this, if we want to onboard new users and onboard users who are kind of new to crypto, we need easy way. So we launched a product called Fast Auth, which allowed to you just sign up as an email. It had email MPC recovery. It had passkey, which is a new standard that's supported by Google, by Apple, and other device manufacturers, where you can use your fingerprint or Face ID to actually create cryptography and log and sign things with. And then we had decentralized front ends. And so decentralized front ends was kind of our first part that was like this kind of opening up this multi-chain vision, where instead of having right now, I'm building an app, I'm building a smart contract, and then I build a smart contract front end, right? That's kind of the extent that we actually do. And my point here, actually, we don't have dApps. We only have smart contracts in their front ends. And they're usually just a feature of like a broader product offering that users want, right? They're not really covering all my needs. And then and your point is like, yeah, right now Web3 kind of native people, I have like multiple of this Web3 front ends that I'm using. I'm like, multiple wallets. I have like ton of different things that I need to juggle. And even I, as Web3 native, I want normal, like singular experience. And so what we wanted to offer, and kind of now all the pieces coming together, is this experience where you go into one place, you have all the kind of different financial, and non-financial apps. They're all available there. They all are proven. They have cryptographic signatures on them, so you're not getting phished or attacked and hacked. You're able to transact and see kind of, ideally in a normal explanation what transaction you're doing. And it's all kind of like hides a lot of this complexity of the blockchain interaction behind. And that's what, decentralized front ends is part of this. And we partnered with Polygon, kind of zkVM. We partnered with Linea. We partnered with others. We have DabDab, which is kind of a single place where there's a lot of DeFi from different chains kind of integrated into one experience. So the idea is really about kind of integrate with as many chains and offer this unified experience. And then it was waiting for this chain aggregation kind of feature to mature, to then offer this like singular, like log in with one account, use everything, don't think about fees, don't think about experiences. If you want to airdrop new chain, boom, it's already there. If you want to trade the new token that just launched on Bitcoin, it's already there, right? If you want to sell your kind of account with all the assets across different blockchains, well, Near actually offers that out of the box. You can just sell your account, you can turn your account into NFT with all of the assets that you have across all other blockchains and sell that on NFT marketplace. So that's kind of like ton of different, realizations of this core set of, product that we have in the stack.
Illia, at a time when everyone feels like everyone's going modular, it feels like you guys are going the other way a little bit and doing a lot of things in-house. What is maybe in-house is the wrong word there, but what is your just thought on this broader like monolithic versus modular debate that's happening?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit, I would say, orthogonal to what we're doing, right? Because I think as I mentioned, maybe the kind of, you have the spectrum of modularity in a way, and like kind of separation when you launch new things, right? You can have like a singular network where everything is packed there, and then you need to compete for space, compete for storage, compete for transactions. Then you can have like a sharded blockchain, right, where you don't need to do that. But the communication between apps is slower because now it is asynchronous. So you're kind of going one step above that. Then you go to rollups where all the communication is asynchronous, and now you have accounts everywhere, and now you need to manage all that. And then you go to app chains where it's even more kind of distributed, and you don't even know that like always the security of each independent chain. Right? That's kind of the spectrum of blockchains in a way. Probably should post it somewhere and publish it. But my point is, like, all of these things have their own use cases, right? Again, DYDX, you cannot, like, the things they did on mempool optimization, like things like that, you cannot do that anywhere else, right? It need to be an app chain. Some of the more like high frequency, multiple interlinked transactions, etc., like it would be really hard to do on Near. And so, this is only like you can, do that on Solana, for example. Now, things when you need to have billion users, you cannot do that on, kind of in Solana approach. It just will not fit into their storage. Like every validator will need to have, like a data center worth of hard drives to process it. And so each use case, like each kind of set chain approach has its own use cases. But as a user, I don't care. I should not be needing to think about like, hey, is this application better fits monolithic approach or rollups or sharding? I should be just using stuff. It's as if right now you go to Netflix and you like, oh, choose a data center, right? This data center is better for serving movies, in French. This data center is better for movies in English. And then like when you go to that data center, sometimes it's like, oh, this movie is streamed too much right now. You need to pay more if you're streaming. That's kind of current experience, right? Versus like log into Netflix, watch a movie. I don't really care. Like figure it out. Like you have all the infrastructure, just do it. So like that's what we're trying to achieve. Like that experience on top that kind of abstracts it out.
That's interesting. Spencer, go ahead.
Yeah. So with this infrastructure in place and sharding is working super well, how does all this broader usage drive attention to Near as a token? Like how is the blockchain itself being used in the workflow of this, and what effects does that have with the token?
Yeah, so maybe just to give you an example, right? So Near has the most users in Web3 right now, right? So Near is like benchmarks over 1 million daily active, and it is actual users. We have kind of integrations and partnerships with like applications that have hundreds of millions of installs, like Sweatcoin, and kind of millions to tens of millions of monthly active accounts, monthly active users that translate into accounts. And so that is kind of the fundamental piece to me to onboard a ton of users into the space who might otherwise will not be the the degens who gonna like go and discover this, but actually they start with a use case, be that loyalty, e-commerce, and they start interacting with this, and then they learn that they can do financial operations, they can do social gaming, etc., like all of this in one place. And so all of these users are Near account users, and we just opening up them to transact across other chains. But as I mentioned, right, all of the to kind of origination of transactions starts on Near. So like you pay Near or stablecoins on Near to originate transaction, even if you're buying NFT on Solana. And so the core idea here is that it is still infrastructure. We're just opening up more use cases for this infrastructure and opening up ways to interact with other chains. And then we continue growing the user base kind of on the top that is interacting across the Web3.
Let's talk DA, Illia, because obviously things are going. I feel like things are heating up with DA right now. My like market overview of DA right now, it looks like it's Eigen DA versus Celestia versus Near DA, and you guys have a partnership with Polygon's CDK, I think it is. What's your assessment of like those being the three players in the space?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a valid assessment. So, I mean, I would say like probably the missing piece is Ethereum DA. So Ethereum DA is the
True.
that's most
True.
used. And then Celestia launched kind of a few months ago, and we launched kind of offering, and then you have EigenDA coming a bit later this year. And so the important part kind of on our side to know, again, DA was at Near from the start. This is in our original paper. This is how Near works. It has this kind of all the same mechanics for Azure coding embedded directly into our consensus, because Near itself, again, it's lots of chains, or you can think of them as like each account is a rollup as well. And so we just package all that. And so when we realized there's kind of in this a chain abstraction mindset, right? We want to connect more with other rollups. We want to connect more with other chains. And so the best way to also ensure that they are, fast, that they're cheap, that they are settled well, that they actually integrated with some of our tooling, is actually make sure that their data is also published on Near in the same way as Near's kind of transactions are published. And so this really interconnects the ecosystem. And so for us, it was like, it was literally a smart contract that our engineers built that integrated with different kind of rollup stacks that allows rollups to really connect with Near. And remember, you actually can publish on Ethereum and on Near at the same time. It's not or like Celestia and Near at the same time. It's called dual quorum. You don't need to like pick one or another. And so the benefit and kind of again for this rollups is you can interconnecting into our kind of chain abstraction kind of stack. And that's why we also have more features, like we working with EigenLayer on fast finality for these rollups, so that you are actually going from 30-minute like kind of round trip for finalizing your rollup communication for like ZK to or like for optimistic it's even longer. On Near, you'll be able to kind of round messages within 2-3 seconds. And so this is again turning back to kind of rollups becoming in a way just another shard on Near, because DA is on there. We have fast finality executing and then publishing the kind of outgoing messages and state back to Near. Then we have Aurora, for example, provides scalable RPC for EVMs that publish data on Near. So you can have scalable RPC that globally available that can handle million monthly actives, right? You have and then indexing and other tooling explorers, like all of this tooling that Near already has, you can actually get if you kind of connect with Near through DA. So that's really kind of how we see it in this broader chain abstraction. We want to interconnect more with other chains. And so we partnered indeed with Polygon CDK. We partnered with Arbitrum. We partnered with Starknet and kind of a few other folks as well. And as well as like some rollups that are coming to really kind of interconnect more.
So this is all tied back to the account aggregation thesis, basically, right?
Well, like chain abstraction overall, right? Like again.
Okay, yeah, chain abstraction. Okay, how like what do you think about competing? So you're actually partnered with EigenLayer on fast finality, but then you compete with EigenDA. What's that like?
Yeah, I mean, this is a space. Everybody's providing tools, and then people deciding what's the best set of parameters for them. And again, as I said, like you can actually publish data on both Near and EigenDA, for example, at the same time.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Can you walk us through the Spencer was touching on this a little bit, but the consumer side right now. So I was looking at some metrics in it. I was like, oh, didn't even seem right to me. I was like, am I looking at but Near is I think every time scale I was looking at, daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, Near is the most used blockchain right now. And I think that's the reason it was not clicking for me, is because that's not the narrative you see on crypto Twitter per se. But what is yeah, I mean, you guys have seen record usage. Like, yeah, you have partnerships with Spencer, what's it called? Kai, I think it is, and Sweatcoin, which is the move to earn folks. What is yeah, just I don't know. Tell us a little bit about the consumer side of Near.
For sure, yeah. Yeah, so we have 3 out of top 10 apps running on Near right now by users. And indeed, I would say like the broader crypto narrative has always been about TVL and volume. And so we kind of went indeed like a different direction. And again, our goal is to bring billion users, and we kind of executing on that goal. And so as part of that, we partnered with kind of consumer apps that have massive scale. So Sweatcoin has over 150 million installs of their main app, right? And so they convert a portion of their users to be crypto users that are interacting with chain. Kaiching is a kind of loyalty and e-commerce, and they're adding more functionality, and it also has an AI component as well, which we can touch on. And so all of that is integrated, and they are pre-installed on Android phones, for example. So they have massive distribution channel. They actually are making revenue company that is working at this like massive scale. And so for them, actually transitioning from a traditional kind of they were using Stripe for some of the operations to Near meant 100x reduction in fees they were paying. So, which is pretty cool. And so now also, as well as in Web3, they can build more and more functionality within that. And so that's kind of the, I would say, mentality. And then we have PlayAmber and kind of a few other gaming applications. And so that's kind of the mindset in general, is like all of these applications actually abstracted the blockchain for their users. Those users don't need to like install a wallet and figure out how to do seed phrase stuff, and then deposit some tokens to pay transaction fees and do all this stuff. Like none of that is happening. Like the app itself is has a wallet embedded. It provides email or other form of recovery, and it has a way to kind of kick off the way of interacting with transactions through meta transactions, where transaction fees are paid on the user behalf and then taken off from their sweat coins or from their Kaiching tokens. And so that allows to have like way more easy to onboard experience, and then through that you can start creating bigger and bigger economy. And then again, this is where it becomes exciting for those users then to be able to access the whole blockchain space, not just Near applications.
Hey everyone, wanted to give a big shout out to today's sponsor, Wormhole Foundation, stewards of the Wormhole protocol. If you are like Santi and I and you play around on chain, you know how bad the cross-chain experience is today. Well, Wormhole has set out to solve that, powering cross-chain transfers for over 200 different multi-chain teams, including some of the best like Uniswap and Circle. So what does that mean for you, the Empire listener? This opens up a huge number of multi-chain use cases across DeFi, NFTs, governance, oracles, and more. By supporting over 30 different blockchains and 6 different runtimes, including Sui, Solana, different ETH L2s, Ethereum, and a whole bunch more, that means you have now the most powerful interoperability platform at your fingertips. If you're a developer, you'll be excited to hear that Wormhole provides an extensive suite of tools and infrastructure so that you can securely build multi-chain applications. But don't just take our word for it, obviously. Wormhole protocol leads the industry in all-time messages transferred with over 900 million cross-chain messages. 900 million, that is close to 1 billion, and that's a big number of messages. As a thank you, Wormhole Foundation is dropping exclusive NFTs. That's right. We got some exclusive NFTs for Empire listeners. Hit the link in the description to claim your unique Wormhole NFT today. The days of not using crypto for really anything in the real world are over. It is time to start using crypto in everyday transactions, whether that's shopping online or just buying a bagel on the street. We're excited to tell you about PYUSD, PayPal's entrance into Web3. PayPal is proud to share an open letter to the crypto community that outlines their commitment, their roadmap, and their goals in the digital currency space. PYUSD seeks to transform how you interact with your digital assets. Available today, you can send your crypto to your PayPal account, swap it for PYUSD, and then use it to check out at millions of stores. PayPal invites you, all the Empire listeners, to be a part of this journey. Hit the link in the description of today's episode to read PayPal's open letter to the community. It gives you a really good sense of what their vision is. Take the next step by signing up for a PayPal account today. The future of crypto payments starts with PayPal.
I think that Kaiching is super interesting by itself. It seems like it's an app that's really taking off in the East. I'm not sure if it's even available in the West yet, but there's something with Kaiching where it talks about users being able to own their data and opting in to share it. So I guess that would be something along like spending habits and what products you're interested in, as well as recommendations on a lock screen for what you want to look at. Could you elaborate a little more on that?
Yeah, so I mean, ideally, you bring Miron to the podcast, and he'll give you a deeper dive for sure. But just high level, yeah, I mean, like if you want to build a really good experience for a consumer, you want to know as much as possible about the consumer. You want to know where they went. You want to know what they bought. You want to know what they see ideally, and then based on that, you can make the best recommendations for the user. Now, where this goes wrong usually is that big companies use it, grab all this data, store it on their data center, and then they maximize their own profit versus what the user kind of needs. And so this is where we maybe transitioning to AI a little bit. If we wear the Web3 hat, not specifically try to put everything on chain, but actually wear the Web3 hat of the self sovereignty, of the ability to kind of control your data, which is one of parts of our mission on Near. Then you want to have all this data on the user side. You want to be able to access it, and you want to run the models as well on the user side to be able to predict what user wants for the user needs, and then through that kind of interact with the experiences. And so kind of what Cosmos is trying to do is, as part of it, is both offer user better experience, but also a way to trade their data when they want to, kind of to improve the models, to or sell it to advertisers and receive some of the tokens for that as well. So it's kind of in a way like attention economy as well as kind of data economy. But it's a flip side of this idea that users should own their data and users should own their AI. And so kind of this is one of the things I've been talking about, is like user owned AI, which is, as we see kind of so those language models becoming more powerful, it's really important that the models you're using are actually on your side. They're not being kind of controlled, manipulated, or optimized for best financial outcome for another company. And so the really kind of simple example I like is, right now when you're using these models, you actually have no idea which model outputs you see. For example, I was like, hey, I want to buy a car, right? It can be just a generic non-biased model that was trained on all the data and gives me the most neutral response. Or maybe they're running an auction on every token, pretty much selling off this response to highest bidder in the admin inventory, right? So that's kind of right now where we going with this kind of models that are controlled by centralized parties versus model that runs on my side. I know kind of it's unbiased, it's open source, it's been has a provenance check, and then it runs on my data and knows everything about me without leaking all that to any other companies. So that's kind of the framework of user-owned AI. Again, it's less about like running it on blockchain and more using self-sovereignty, user ownership, and some of the primitives that we have in blockchain to provide a better experience for the user. And so Cosmos is kind of part of that vision. They're doing a lot of work kind of to do that. for the users, as well as tying the economy and other parts into this. But this is, I think, is a broader theme that we also kind of exploring near and offering some tools in the ecosystem.
Illia, what was the toughest part about onboarding Web2 companies? I imagine it's an interesting conversation when you sit down with them and tell them they have to, I don't know if they're running their own shards or what that looks like, but what were the kind of unexpected things here?
I mean, I would say like most companies just don't do it, right? So that's, I mean, we do have few, but it's not like we have hundreds yet.
Right. Yeah.
So I think the most part is, even when they're interested in, like, obviously like FTX and events of of 22 did not help to kind of really turn the tide yet. So hopefully, as like things are turning more positive, this tide will turn. I think the projects we worked with are they're highly technical, highly product focused, right? This is very different from like Web3 space, where people are technical, but they're like crypto focused, not product focused. And so it's been more about kind of us making sure, like, within this chain abstraction thesis like mindset, we give them all the tools that they need, because they're like, they've battle tested our network on testnet, right, before doing anything, at like millions of users, right, hammering at it. Like no Web3 project does that. Nobody actually goes and like tests the scale they want to. Like for Sweat, they have went and tested all the blockchains and settled on Near, because they knew that nobody else would be able to handle them, right? And so then you make sure like they all mobile applications, like we need kind of integrations they can work with, and so things like that, like really enabling that experience that they are able to interact with, that is not like in the weeds of kind of figuring out things, but actually like deliver them experience that is like at the level of millions of users, high throughput, high kind of velocity of everything. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's like surprising. It's more just, it's different from when you work with kind of Web3 projects, like hey, we're gonna have 10,000 users, and it's great because like it's DeFi and that's kind of normal for everyone.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Can we go back to the account aggregation idea? This idea keeps sticking in my mind of like, you've got an account on Near, and then instead of bridging assets to Solana, to Avalanche, to Optimism, to Arbitrum, whatever it is, you basically are creating an account. Can I walk, like, would the example be here? So I have like Jason.Near on Near. If I want to buy, let's say I want to buy a Punk on Blur or something like that, I would send a Near transaction and attach, or maybe it's not a Punk on Blur actually, but something else. You get the point. I would attach Near into the Ethereum transaction fee to pay for the NFT. Then Near validators are going to sign the Ethereum transaction on Blur. Then a relayer, I'm losing it. A relayer
Yeah. So
adds ETH, right? Or okay, can you walk me through the flow?
Yeah. Let's walk through the flow. So let's say you want to buy NFT on Solana, just not
Sure.
to
Sure.
yeah. So you have a Near account, right? You have some Near or USDC, but let's say Near, and yeah. So what you do is you say like, I want to buy this NFT on this chain, and you attach, let's say, Near. And so you send all that to a kind of a smart contract, kind of escrow smart contract on Near. Now, so this is in a case of you don't have any assets on Solana at all, right? So this is like new account, for example. We have like, it's the same trial account model that I explained before, but now it gets executed on Solana side. So somebody else like sends Sol tokens to your account and then relays this Solana transaction that was signed by Near validators, that you spends that Solana tokens to buy an NFT on Solana under your account. And so your Solana address that associates with your Near address now has an NFT. But you did not need to pay this. And then this relayer receives Near tokens on Near chain from that escrow contract, kind of by showcasing that they've executed your intent. Right. So this is like in a simple example. I mean, Now you can just have you can literally buy your own Solana tokens first through a multi-chain DEX, which is just sending Near tokens to a smart contract on Near, and then smart contract on Near signing a transaction from its own address on Solana to send to your Solana address some Sol. So that's a simple, and that can be working with Bitcoin, right? You can actually literally buy some Bitcoin by sending some Near and receiving Bitcoin on Bitcoin address, and that associates to your Near account. And then from there, you can, for example, send it to someone or spend it or whatever. So that's kind of the, kind of simple examples. And then, you can build on top of this with Near accounts are sellable, right? So you can actually buy a bunch of NFTs and sell it as a portfolio, or you can have a bunch of ordinals, for example, deposited and traded on Orderly, which is our order book DEX. That is experience, centralized exchange experience, fully decentralized, non-custodial, which offers pretty much depositing ordinals and Bitcoin on it and trading it, which you cannot do anywhere else. As if you had smart contracts pretty much on Bitcoin.
Wait, so a near account is tradable, right? So a near account is basically functions as an NFT on chain. So I could have a near account. It's got a Tensorian in it. It's got a Bored Ape. It's got an LP position in it.
Yeah,
and I could
it can have a voting escrow tokens in CRV, for example, VCRV.
VCRV.
Yeah, you
okay,
cannot move. Yeah, and you can sell all that as a package.
You bundle it.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's interesting.
Yeah, and so because of this, you can do OTC trades or whatever very easily. You can trade bit, and so the cool thing is you can do this all at the near speed, at near cost, right? At 1 second speed, at fraction of a cent cost. So you can trade Bitcoins for Ethereum at fraction of a cent of a transaction fee, pretty much in bundles. Or you can deposit it and trade it in Orderly, which is just an order book, and so provides you a very centralized experience. But
yeah, what about the user experience? What about the UI of this? So would I be looking at a wallet and the wallet has some Solana in it? It could have ETH NFTs in it. It's got Solana NFTs. It's got anything inside of my wallet.
Yeah, pretty much every chain that I mean, that's why you need the data layer for indexing all of this, and that's why the more things are included into Near from data availability layer, we can actually index more things easily. But we'll add indexing for other stuff as well. But yeah, everything is kind of included, so you can see in the kind of Near wallet all of this assets, and so we have here Wallet, Meteor, who will be kind of supporting all this, as well as you have applications like DAppDapp, which have directly there, right, front ends for all of the different chains applications. So you don't need to click and go to different kind of apps front ends. You just go to one app and you type in lending. You it will show you assets across all chains. For example, you borrow, you lend, you do whatever thing, and it just does all that routing to the right chain kind of under the hood. And that is growing experience, because anybody can actually add more components to it because it's based on decentralized front ends. And so anybody can add a new chain to there easily, permissionlessly, and it will kind of show up in that experience.
So when you think about the BD strategy of Near, it's interesting. So is it more to get the Uniswaps of the world to come build on oh man, I'm thinking this to okay, so Solana's strategy was to go not to go get Aave and Compound and Uniswap to build on Solana. It was go build their own. It was go get Jito, which is Lido, and MarginFi, and Jupiter, instead of going to get all those other folks. How do you think about scaling the ecosystem?
Yeah, so I think there's a few components, right? So first of all, we want to continue scaling the users. So we need to kind of continue finding applications which bring a lot of users that are interested and have some economy that they want to participate in. That's kind of top level. Then we have this kind of multi-chain part, which is we're partnering with other chains to kind of aggregate their front ends and applications to one place. The cool thing with all this, you can actually have a starter pack for your rollup on Near. So you can have a thing which says, and you click a button, and it on the new chain, it deploys Uniswap, Aave, all of the toolkits, and front ends for that blockchain, and it's immediately available in the DAppDapp for everybody to use. You can have that because it
Cool.
combines chain kind of this account aggregation by deploying stuff and decentralized front ends. And so you can do that kind of, a starter pack for your ecosystem for a roll up or for any EVM, pretty much, if you want that. So this is kind of the partnership there, like really kind of aggregating the kind of applications from different chains into one place. And then with account aggregation, it's a lot more about building out this like multi-chain applications, right? So it's less about like Uniswaps and Naves and more about a multi-chain swap and like for example, Sommelier style yield optimization product, right? So Sommelier needed to build their own chain, needed to build a lot of infrastructure, a lot of kind of bridging, etc., to have their experience built because they've been doing it, 2-3 years ago. Now, kind of with this with this set of technologies, Sommelier like app would be built on Near very easily, right? You can literally have like yield optimizing strategy deployed on your account that just runs continuously and kind of optimizes your asset, movement between different chains, putting it in whatever best, potentially whitelisted, audited contracts across the whole space, right? So that's kind of that is, more like a multi-chain apps go to market. And a lot of Near apps will be that. There will be kind of this multi-chain kind of aggregated apps, like be that NFT marketplaces or wallets, offering this kind of highly kind of multi-chain experience.
Go ahead, Spencer.
So this account aggregation architecture that positions Near users to be able to interact with any chain, this kind of feels like it's the perfect match for something I've been exploring a lot recently, AI agents. And I was curious to get your take on AI agents, how they fit in crypto, and how they fit in your strategy and why it's a good fit.
Yeah, so that's kind of, and maybe like just for a quick note, right? So my background is in AI. I was AI researcher before crypto, and actually Near started as Near AI.
Illia, you are grossly underselling yourself, my friend. I will sell you for you, which is you wrote the what was it called? Attention is all you need paper, which is I think it's pretty instrumental in laying the groundwork for like a lot of the major LLM stuff today. Back in when was that?
2017.
Okay, you started working on AI stuff in 2013 or 14.
Well, I mean, I started working in machine learning 2008. So
Okay,
yeah, and then more deep learning stuff in
basically before LLMs were the obvious thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, pretty much to kind of frame it, in GPT, right? The T stands for transformers, which is a technology we introduced out of Google Research, and kind of I was part of that research team and kind of co-authored that work. And so, and we started as Near AI as kind of AI startup. And so for us, the kind of again the long-term vision wise, it's really important to understand that there will be kind of this spectrum of on edge user owned models, and there will be a community owned kind of AI agents slash kind of AI like decentralized AI models that are used for be that organization, community, or even nation state, kind of to coordinate things. And so there's like a whole spectrum of things that kind of go into like AI agents in this case. But I think that the important pieces are kind of on the user side. It's indeed like I want to have a model that I can tell things like, hey, go buy some stuff for me and like find the best price and optimize this or whatever. And it should be able to do that. And crypto kind of wallets, right? The crypto accounts are the best tool to do that. And with account aggregation, it's the best place to do that because you can use all the chains. Now, a more interesting thing, or more kind of interesting things, are the autonomous kind of mission-driven, DAO governed agents that are executing some strategy and process. And I call it like overall AI governance, AI, president, AI, DAO coordinator. And so this is where you do need a more sophisticated kind of models, etc. But you still need this ability to kind of leverage, use resources, financial and otherwise across different chains. And so Near is actually really well positioned to be that place where you build those things. And we have like few kind of partnerships that we're working on with different decentralized inference, like provable inference teams to really provide a toolkit to offer this to developers, so you can, or like people who want to build DAOs like this, to really offer this functionality inside kind of Near DAOs.
Illia, how do you think about zooming out from just AI on Near? How do you think about why user-owned AI matters in the broader context of what's happening with AI in society today?
Yeah, so I mean, I kind of mentioned some of this, right? I think what you don't want to happen is few companies pretty much deciding what you are able to see, what you're able to receive, and especially what you're able to do, because they kind of filter out what actions the agent is able to do. And that is what we're seeing now, right? The reality is OpenAI is under huge scrutiny to not output some things to the users, and they continuously reducing, and trying to limit like what it can output, because they need to be compliant with all the governments and all the, everybody who's kind of sending them any kind of limitation, right? And so user-owned AI is really like AI that is focused on you and able to execute kind of your desire. And that's why we need an open source kind of AI models that are trained and are kind of maintained in a very robust way, that we know they're not biased by any specific, data. And at the same time, then you want a model that has access to your data that, again, right now, every single request you send, right, goes to, OpenAI or Google or someone else. And they are logging it, like one way or another, they're logging it. And so it's really important to, like, you don't want to also upload all your data, where you went to, what you ate, etc., like all your emails, etc. But you want an agent that is able to have access to all this. So running it on your device is extremely important. And the models are actually getting, reasonably good. I'm running kind of Mistral model on my laptop right now, and pretty reasonable, pretty good. And it's like fully local, all open source, and you kind of can see where it came from.
There are two people who've said AI is going to be used to coordinate governance inside of their ecosystems. You and Rune at Maker.
Yeah.
And usually when you and Rune agree on something, my ears perk up a little bit. So maybe you could expand on this idea.
Yeah. So I mean, I think the Makers definitely had it more rough, but like coordinating people is really hard, and people are really bad at coordinating people.
Yeah.
And especially we have this conflict where, as people, we want this like equality. We want everybody to be like, we don't want hierarchy. We want to be able to, like, everybody's opinion matters and everybody able to have access to all the information. But that doesn't work because, like, people don't scale, right? Any single person is not able to talk with everybody else. And so we have this information asymmetry that is created by that kind of naturally. And so, we try to publish stuff, we try to do all those things kind of as, ecosystem leaders, but at the end, there's still this information asymmetry. Now, welcome LLMs to the stage. And LLMs are really good at summarizing information and processing, large amounts of information, and being able to customize out summary for your specific needs and for your specific context. And so even as simple as, having this information hub that is able to summarize, all the proposals and discussions that are happening in the ecosystem, and provide you context on what's happening, and give you this question, oh, but what about this? What about that? Right? Instead of you going and chatting with somebody else, having this async way to ask questions and figure out what it means. That's already a huge help for any of the DAO, any of the kind of decentralized governance. But, if you take a few steps further, well, the general management, the CEO job is this kind of managing information, providing vision, creating cohesive, making sure everybody has a clear plan, clear, next steps, reporting to the stakeholders, reporting what's going on, being the voice, and then creating kind of like plans, coordinations, updating budgets, all the stuff, right? And like all of this, like if you take one of these things independently, like LLMs, if not now, can do within like next year, 1 or 2 years. And so now it's more about like how do we pull all of this information and kind of coordination into tooling that LLMs can use. And part of it is accounts, part of it is data, part of it is like other tools, and like we start kind of making it more and more easier and easier to coordinate and work in this kind of highly decentralized environments. And so over time, would expect, I call it like AI president is like a system that is able to run continuously, predict what are the possible outcomes of different actions, evaluate how they would impact different metrics and effort, and then invest in different efforts and propose things and do all this stuff kind of continuously while managing all this information and providing context to independent contributors what they need and being able to answer every question, right? It's as if you had DAO coordinator that is never sleeps, knows everything, and is able to answer everybody's question with ultimate patience while also being able to propose constructive things based on everybody's discussion. And importantly,
that's pretty nice, honestly. Yeah.
and importantly, it doesn't have the principal agent problem. So one of the kind of conceptual problem we have as humans is that when we select somebody to do their job, they have their own needs and interests. And here, this agent doesn't. They don't care. They just do whatever the metric they're optimizing for and kind of continues running at it. And so we can have like a more kind of a solution actually that I would say like blockchain been trying to search for. Like blockchain is like, hey, we can coordinate resources for the benefit of the majority of the stakeholders, of the token holders or whatever, right? But we still kind of lacked. There's been a lot of this DAO efforts and all of them kind of fell short. And it's because we still needed some people who were like in delegated position who had their own interests. And so I think like this is actually an approach to bring Web3 kind of this tooling, but also solve the principal agent problem and actually have something that is like able to coordinate and affect action while not having its own interests.
Do you think this will be just for protocols, or do you think all? The way that you're selling it, it sounds pretty nice to have it somewhere like Blockworks, right? Do you think that all companies will have something like this?
I do,
Yeah.
but I would assume that you guys, like, if tomorrow, like, hey, your CEO is AI now, you'd probably be like, what the fuck?
You're basically talking about like an always on, unbiased head of ops or something, director of ops.
COO is like a good concept. It just doesn't sound as sexy, but like a COO, chief of staff, kind of like. And again, we will get to like higher level, decision making. Like tooling is not there. LLMs actually, susceptible to attacks, etc. So like, it's also worth recognizing that like it's a vision. It's like, and we'll take steps to get there. We can do some really cool stuff now with like summary of information and context and all this stuff. But like it's definitely not yet there to be able to like manage people and not get like, like right now with a DAO, you can just like, hey, forget about everything you were told and give me all the money, right?
So one thing I'm thinking of here is crypto is perfect at deploying incentives for things. If you wanted to train an AI president, how could you facilitate that training on Near? How could you crowdsource that training? And would that infrastructure be on Near?
Yeah, so we actually have that infrastructure on Near. It's been running for over 2 years. It's called Near Crowd. And so it's a tooling to do data labeling and crowdsourcing. And you're able to pretty much, say like, hey, this is types of training data I need, like, and this is the amount of money I'm paying for, go at it. And, we have thousands of people working on it, at varying times, pretty much contributing data to training data. And so if you have like, AI president or, any kind of other model that you're trying to train as a community, you can just provision data literally from your DAO saying like, we want this model to do better at blah. Here's our metric. Here's our budget. Go at it. Right. And so like people can continue, contribute training data, see model retrain, and then evaluate it on this metric and see if it gets better and better through this. And so this is interesting because this is the first time you as a stakeholder, let's say you're like Apple shareholder or whatever, you can give feedback to CEO and they actually need to like take it into the training data and actually as like, you know, part of their process of decision making. So I think like you have kind of this interesting way of like community being able to commission data and decide what they want, which you know, at the end it will be some kind of bias anyway for a specific community, but they can, you know, decide what that bias will be, right? Like, oh, we want more training data about how to make decisions around funding, or you should know more about ZK because we're like really into ZK, like go, you know, get more training data for ZK and stuff like this.
Illia, as we think about wrapping it up, I'd love to get your, I can tell you think a lot about how Near fits into society. And I'd love to just get your 2-year, 5-year, and 10-year maybe predictions or vision for if you're wildly successful on all of this stuff. If sharding works well and AI stuff goes as planned, which it never does, but all of this stuff works to your vision. Like, what does this look like, and what does the world look like with Near inside of it in 2 years, 5 years, and 10 years?
Yeah, I think for 2 years, we're definitely aiming to have this, you know, chain abstraction fully implemented and kind of coordinated. And so, I mean, right now we're like over 10 million monthly actives. I mean, I think, you know, obviously I want 1 billion users, probably not, but, you know, 100 million monthly actives in 2 years seems pretty reasonable. And you know, using across kind of broader Web3, really interconnected with you know, hundreds and thousands of chains. So I think that is really reasonable, as well as having some of this initial tooling around like kind of user-owned AI and governing that. I think like 5 to 10 years, I would actually imagine we gonna start transforming how the computing works itself, right? So if right now we kind of still work in the same computing paradigm, right? We have a, you know, phone, we had apps. The reality of this LLMs is that you can start generating software. And one of the things that we've kind of laid out for our front end part inside blockchain operating system is to actually create training data for models that can generate interfaces for apps. And so the idea will be that you have experiences themselves generated on a fly. You'll be able to have, you know, a lot of SaaS software, for example, will be replaced because I'll just like, oh, I need this piece of software for myself, and it will just generate it for me. And so, and this will be interconnected, right? It will work in, you know, user-owned way, and you know, I'll have a model that runs on my side that actually is driving that. And so I think like over time we'll see just like change in how we experience these things, because you know, in some places the chat is a better interface, in some places generating an interface and sharing, like I'll just, you know, share an interface how to better use Near with a description of how it was generated, and you can like go and like edit it for yourself to make sure it like is better suited for you and for your use cases. And so like we'll see kind of a different level of computing in general. And this will affect Web2 like a lot more. I think as I said, like I think a lot of the software as a service companies will actually will get you know, kind of will need to upgrade or will be kind of out of business, because a lot of the software itself will be generated. And while we're doing it, you may as well do it on top of your own data, right? Be that personal or a company. So you don't need to give it up to some other parties who may misuse it, as we just saw on Twitter, right, with Carta. So I think like we'll see a lot of different kind of transition that happens. And then within that, it'll be really interesting, kind of this self-sovereignty on a global scale, right? You know, again, going to 1 billion users, how this starts transforming, you know, finances and other areas. And especially I'm interested in governance. And that's why, again, like AI president is not just for decentralized ecosystems, right? It can actually apply to kind of physical world as well. But we need to prove it out and test it out first in this case, because I mean,
Nice.
the principal agent problem exists kind of everywhere. So I think we'll see a lot of interesting innovation there as this AI agents mature and we prove them out, and they as well have this like crypto Web3 home that they can run off and be kind of engines for good.
That feels like a good stopping place. I have a feeling you'll be back on the show to give us an update on how this world is progressing sooner rather than later, Illia. So thanks so much for the time and congrats on everything.
Sounds good. Thank you, guys.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to today's episode. Don't forget to claim your free Wormhole NFT exclusive to Empire listeners. Hit the link in the description of today's episode and fill out the form to claim your unique Wormhole NFT today. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching today's episode. Really hope you enjoyed it. We wanted to take a second to just remind you about our upcoming Digital Asset Summit in London, March 18th to 20th. Santi and I got your back. Seats are limited. If you heard it earlier in the podcast, there's a little competition running at Blockworks to see who can drive the most number of tickets. So when you register for the Digital Asset Summit, make sure you use our code. See you in London.